I've got a 71 Volkswagen Squareback behind me that I decided to turn into a panel wagon. You can see behind me there's the back panel, and I'm going to show you a couple of things that I did to cut it out and how to do it with a stick welder instead of a MIG if you don't have one. I used a Ranger 10. I set it on 45, and I turned the stick control down and I put it in a DC positive. Everything seemed to work out pretty good. I thought it was going to be a little more difficult. The gauge on this is 18 gauge steel. The Volkswagen is just between 18 and 20, and they, because of the curvature of where I welded it in, I thought it would be a little thicker, and I didn't have any problems. I had one burn through, and I probably have 100 spot welds between both sides. What I did first was I took the windows out, took all the glass out, and I cut this template. I used the heaviest construction paper I could find, and I layered it. And what I did is I taped it so that it was over the dimensions I needed, and then I went around and traced it with an X-Acto knife right at the curve. And then I took that template and I flipped it over to some thin sheet metal, galvanized, I got from a sheet metal shop next door. The guy just flipped it to me. The piece was 16 inches by 60 inches, and then I just taped the paper template over it and I traced it out, and then I put it in place and made sure that it fit on the driver's side. When you do this, you're going to want to check both sides to make sure that everything lines up. So do it on one side and then go to the other and make sure it fits properly on the other side too. What I did after that was I took the panels and I sandwiched the three of them together. I sandwiched the sheet metal template and then the steel, the two pieces of steel, and I stacked them, and then I ended up cutting them out with a Bosch jigsaw with metal blades. I only went through one blade and went all the way around and got it to fit. Then I took a sander and I sanded all the edges around the outside, and I'll show you the pieces I cut for out of the window. These are the two pieces from the center post between the back seat window and the side rear window. You can see that I trimmed them out. You have to do this in order to get the piece to go flat, otherwise you're going to cut 4 pieces total unless you cut this section out. So it wasn't too terribly difficult to do. I did most of it with a cutoff wheel, and then I just trimmed it up a little with a sawzall in the corners, and it made it pretty easy. I took this piece here into the metal place in the steel shop and cleaned the edge off a little bit so that they can get a proper reading on the thickness of the metal, and that's where I got the numbers from them. Here's the welding rod that I used. It's 3/32, 6013. Worked fine, no problems. Got the welder turned down and everything came out really nice. So all I got to do now is grind all that down and smooth it out a little bit, a little filler, and I have a solid sheet all the way across. I'm going to tack a piece in the back to hold that in place once I get a little further along. And here we have the driver's side. When you do your welds, do a couple top and bottom in the center, like right up in here where the post would have been, and then after that kind of work your way out, and you do 1 or 2 on the top and then move to the bottom and then do the front half. And I just checked it and rechecked it as I was going along to make sure that all the seams fit in really well. So what we have now is a paneled 71 Volkswagen Squareback. The only welding experience I have is just personal. I took a welding class years back at a junior college, and that was pretty helpful learning the basics. But take the scrap pieces of steel that you trim off the pieces you're going to weld in, and practice on those to make sure you get your stick at the right, the right settings. If it's too hot, it'll burn through, and then what you want to do is be able to do, just hop, skip, and a jump from one to the next, and not have any problems with them burning through. But pretty much not too terribly difficult. I know everyone swears that you got to use a wire feed, but you can do it with a stick too. If you have any questions, put them in the box below. I'll probably have some other things that I'll be doing to this really quick, like when I do the interior and everything else. And I'll post all that up as I go along. And have fun with your bugs. Another note, when you're putting your piece into place, once you have the final position you want to put it in, I used magnets. There's one up on the roof right there. I used those on the side of the car to hold my pieces in place, and then I went around and tapped it with a chisel and a rubber mallet just to get it to move to where I wanted it to go, just a little bit at a time. But I used black Sharpie, and I just drew lines across this way and then this way from the vehicle itself, from the outside of the car to the piece. That way I could go back and line it up in the same location and not, have to start all over again. And it made it real easy. You have to do a little grinding here and there. You peel a piece off, and then you go and you work it, and then you put it back in the exact location, and you don't have to guess the second time, and you don't screw things up. That was it. Make sure you wear your safety goggles.